Hello and welcome to LaserBeam Live, episode number 31. My name is Ikenna for CNC Labs, and whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night, I appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me. I have a confession. This is not actually live. We don't want you to believe this is live. I may be in the chat over here, whichever side. I will actually be in a town outside of Chicago for the LightBurn experience. So if you are viewing this live, then you probably are using LightBurn, and you've probably seen me use LightBurn over the past 30 LaserBeam lives, and you know that we highly recommend it. We love the software. It can do a lot, and it's not too expensive. So we heavily promote it, and it's kind of the software we use internally. So it's easy for us to help you when you guys have issues as well. So they're having their first ever convention, the LightBurn experience, where a bunch of companies like ours that use LightBurn or laser operators or anything laser related come down and kind of network and get to talk to the owners and some of the software developers and get to do some seminars on some new tools that are coming out and just learn more about LightBurn and network with other laser users and laser developers of the like. So I'm very excited. Hopefully, if the internet if the internet is good and I am, settled at my hotel, then hopefully I will either be in this corner or this corner with my webcam. And at the bare minimum, hopefully I will be in the chat so I can answer your questions and stuff like that. So, first of all, if you came down to the Hamilton Woodworking Show this past weekend, just want to say hi. Thank you for coming to our booth. It was a very exciting time. The enclosure build that we started the design for last week was a success. It's actually right beside me, sitting right here, so now we can run projects when we're at home. So welcome to my home again. So this is LaserBeam Live number 2 in my home, and now we have access to 12 by 30 MK2 long mill with a LaserBeam on it. Just if you're curious, we have a 4-inch inline fan that's vented to a pre-filter, and then that is vented to a carbon filter. And during the Hamilton Woodworking Show, we had no problems. It's actually quite sound dampening. The laser's driver is actually running right now, and it blocks a lot of the sound, and as well as it did a great job exhausting that smoke and particulate and making sure that there was no smoke or like smell coming from our booth. So I feel pretty confident running it in my apartment building, and yeah, you'll know by the end of the stream whether it was good for indoor use, because my fire alarm is either going to go off or we're going to have a nice calm stream doing some engrave work. So what are we actually doing today? So last weekend at the woodworking show, I had somebody come up and ask me if the laser could engrave granite or stone or tile. And I know that the laser can engrave slate really well, but I actually have not done any tile work or stone work or anything like that. So I went down to Home Depot. I picked up some non-glossy porcelain, and we're just gonna find out if we can engrave it with the laser. Maybe the laser's not powerful enough. That's why we're releasing a CO2, but maybe it is. I figured that the gloss porcelain or any type of glossy stone would have a hard time engraving because the light is gonna wanna shine, bounce off the material and not actually hold that heat and energy in the material enough to engrave. So I went for a more matte finish porcelain tile, and I just want to find out if I can engrave it. I want to go super slow just to find out what the heat tolerance is for it, and then I want to find out if this is a possibility for you guys. And I think over the next couple streams, because I did have the guy I spoke about who came and asked about the granite, he was actually pretty local to us, so he will be dropping off some sample granite. So if the porcelain tile doesn't work today, then hopefully in the next stream we can go over the granite and other types of stone, and at worst case I'll buy some slate and we can do some slate projects, because we know slate is really nice to engrave with the laser beam. So I feel so alone today because I don't have the chat. Usually somebody would have been in the chat and been like, hey, I'm 9 hours early, I'm 4 hours early, I'm 3 hours early. I'd be saying hi to all my laser demons in the chat, but I digress. Hopefully a version of me on this side in a webcam or something, or we'll be saying hi to you guys when this airs live, or I'll just be in the chat saying hi to you guys. So I'll get to talk to you guys tomorrow. Yeah, so I could show you guys here. You guys can see my little camera setup, and I can pull this back and kind of show you the finished enclosure, because you guys saw that we were designing it. And you can kind of see in the back that hole where the fan vents out, and then behind it, it is running through some flexible ducting to a pre-filter and then to a carbon filter. So yeah, that was the enclosure that we were designing. We're using the special orange plexiglass or acrylic, as well as the shield, because you would need both in order to run this without your safety glasses, because one layer is not enough. That's why we always tell you don't run the laser just with the shield without your glasses. With this type of acrylic, you do need 2 layers. And when you're just using the shield, there is some spillover on the edges. So that's why we have the viewing window is the same acrylic as the shield and as the safety glasses, but the safety glasses is much thicker and a little bit higher quality, because you're supposed to be wearing that at all times. So let's get right into it. Oh, sorry guys, I just have to resize my screen over here. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see now. So I'm gonna pop open LightBurn. And this is actually one of the projects that we were running at the Hamilton Woodworking Show. Sorry, I'm just gonna arrange this a little better. There we go. This is actually one of the projects, and I went to the website Thingiverse. So if you're ever looking for a library of 3D or 2D files because you don't like designing, or like me, you're not great at designing beautiful looking things all the time, Thingiverse is a free website where you can download 2D and 3D files, and then you can use that for your router work or your laser work in 2D. So all I did was I downloaded this cool little skull. It was an SVG, and you know what? I did the skull, so I'm actually going to try to do the flower today. So first I'm just going to ungroup everything so that I can select all the details here. And then I'm going to take this bottom one, so I'm going to get rid of the skull over here. And this is going to be our little design. So I'm going to get rid of the circle because I don't need it. So I'm going to ungroup again so I can get rid of this. And this is our little flower design. So first I'm going to size it. So we have about, I'm going to say 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. I probably have more space, but I'm just going to be conservative because I don't want to open up the enclosure again. And I'm going to put that at 0, 0 in the X position and the Y position, so it's just the bottom corner. And I'm going to change the color just so you guys can see it a little better. And then I am going to change this to user origin, and I'm going to go to center because it's a hexagon, and I don't want to start from the corner on a hexagon. I'm just going to try to roughly aim center. Obviously, if this was a project of yours, you could measure out center, do a little marking, and then start your job from center. So we have it at about 4 passes because I honestly don't know what it's going to need in order to engrave the porcelain, and I don't even know if it's going to be able to engrave the porcelain. I know that some people have some luck sanding and then painting porcelain, and then the chemical reaction of the heat and the paint engraves into the porcelain, and then you can use a paint thinner to wipe away the unlasered paint, and the paint that was touched by the laser, that was engraved by the laser, will actually have this chemical reaction that will actually bond to the porcelain. But I just figured, you know, this is a quick little live, not so live actually. So I figured, why not just try something, and then we can just explore, and we can take a few streams to actually explore that. So guys, before I start this, or let me take a pause, and I actually just want to talk about the CO2 laser. So we are very excited to be starting the CO2 laser, we're the development of it, and we are looking to get your input, and we are just about done our survey. So we are going to be sending out a survey very soon on the email list, the main email list. So if you're not signed up, go to our website, sign up for the main email list so you can get all the updates. And in that email that we're going to send to all of you, we will be including a survey link so you guys can tell us what you want from your ultimate laser solution. This is going to be a standalone machine, high power CO2 glass laser, high speed, and we want you to kind of tell us what type of products that you do, why would you want a laser like this, if you would want a laser like this. Because if all of you guys send in your survey results and you guys are like, hey, no, we don't need a laser like this, then maybe we aren't going to be developing it. We only want to make stuff that you guys are going to want. So definitely look out for the email, sign up for the email list, look out for the email. We'll probably go out next week. We'll have a little announcement video that goes out, and we'll have a new email list just for CO2 laser, so that you guys who are very interested can follow along the development. We'll be doing production updates, research and development updates every couple of weeks, and I'll be posting the updates, or I'll be doing updates as well on the LaserBeam Live. So definitely go check that out when it drops next week. Sign up for our email list, and you'll kind of be in the flow for everything: survey, CO2 email list, all that fun stuff. And then watch out for our little announcement video that we'll have hopefully dropping next week. So okay, let's get back to the project. So I don't know what speed I'm gonna need, and so I'm gonna run it 4 passes. So if it's good on the first pass, then we could just stop the job after the first pass. But if it's not, then we could just let it run over again. And I'm just gonna assume that it's gonna need a lot of power, so I'm just gonna drop it to 5 millimeters per second. And let's see what that gets us. So just as a reminder, guys, always make sure that your $30 value is the same as this S value max, minus set to 255, 255. I'm actually going to turn off fast white space because I don't need it right now. Or actually, I don't know if I don't need it. We shall see. And I'm just going to export the code. And we'll just do flower V1. Now we'll just pop open GSender. We'll load up that flower file right there. Oh, I think my 0 was a little bit off here. My origin. We should be centered. So I'm going to try centering it on the project as well. User origin, and I'm going to resave the G code. Yes. Flower V1, and we'll see if the origin point updates there. So we're starting our job at a weird place, so let's find out why. Let's play with our origins a little bit. We have it set to user origin, and we have it set to the center. We have this set to the center. But we're starting off a little bit. Let's try current position, and let's see if anything changes. Flower V1. See if we can get it to move around by changing some settings in LightBurn. And now we're centered. Okay, that's a bit. So it needed current position rather than user origin in order to center it. But we are centered right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the job. Not perfectly centered on my material, but I'm not really too worried about it. I just want to know, can it engrave this? That's kind of what I want to find out. So we're at 5 millimeters per second. And actually, we were at 25% power, and we want to raise that to 100% power. Because I have a feeling that it's going to be a material that either doesn't engrave or needs a lot, it's going to need maximum power. So that's just a guess. I've never engraved porcelain. I don't think I've ever engraved any type of any type of stone material. So I'm just guessing at this point. So let's see how this material reacts to 100% laser, dip switch level 5, and let's see if we can get it to run. So I just want to see if it's even capable of marking up the material, and it just might not be. It's hard to see through the glass in the air assist, so we might just have to wait until the end. Might be quite a long job, so we might pause it after a pass or two and kind of make our decision. And then we'll just engrave some regular 1/4-inch plywood. Or what we might do is we might actually try to cut some 1/4-inch plywood, because I do get a lot of messages talking about cutting and them not being able to, but I've been able to cut 1/4-inch plywood. It does take some time, it does take a lot of passes, but I've definitely been able to do it. So I kind of just want to, if this doesn't work out, we'll check back in about 10 minutes. But if this doesn't work out, why don't we start prepping a job? Why don't we start prepping a job so that we have a backup on a 1/4-inch piece of plywood, and let's see if we can get it to cut. So I'm going to import that design file again because I want the circle to use as the cutout. So let's import the skull here. And then let's do the exact same thing that we did last time, where we ungroup. Let's get rid of these two. And then we can put this back to top left, because I do have a rectangular piece. So I can start at the top of the material. I guess for orienting this, it would be bottom left. I think we might actually be engraving it. It just might take a little while. So worst case, we can always do this. We'll just have this file ready in our back pocket. So if I was going to try to cut 1/4-inch, these are the settings that I would be going for. 2 millimeters per second. I might even go 1.9. We want it to move slow. We want 100% power, like 1.5 to 3 millimeters per second if you're cutting. And I'm going to go 12 passes with a Z step down of 0.5 millimeters. I'll even go a little bit slightly bigger than that, 0.55 millimeters, so that by the end we are focusing at the bottom of the material. And that's what I would be using for cutting. And if we're engraving, we can keep it at 25%, 25 millimeters per second and 100% power, because I want this to be dark. And then I'll just grab a piece of material here. So this is just a 1/4-inch ply. And of course, plywood cut is a lot harder to cut than like a more solid birch or anything like that, because you have the glue and stuff in the middle of your material that can rebind with the heat, and that can just make it a lot harder to cut. I do actually think we are engraving this thing. I just think it's hard to tell because it's not like a super contrasty white behind the tile. It is a lighter gray. So the top is a bit of a darker gray, and then when it's engraving, it's a lighter gray. So we are engraving it, it's just hard to tell. So let's measure out our piece so we can have this design just ready to go in our back pocket. So we're at about 73 millimeters by 50 millimeters. So we can make this about 50, let's say 45 millimeters, because it is a perfect circle. And we should be able to cut this out with 12 passes, 1.9 millimeters per second, 100% power at dip switch 5. And you need to make sure that your EEPROM setting, your max, your $30 is also set to the same value that your S value max here in LightBurn is set, or else you won't have access to all your power. You need to make sure the dip switch 5 setting is all the way down and no other dip switch is selected. You can only select one at a time. So make sure your 5 is down for maximum power. That's 100% power. And then we should be able to cut this 1/4 inch plywood here. Okay. So I'll save this G code, flower cut version 1. And just in case we want to stop that job, or we can save this code for the next time, and we could do a whole video on cutting, or we can try to get some granite. Maybe we can do a little bit of both. But it would be really cool to see if you could engrave some tile, because I imagine you were redoing your bathroom. And you were able to engrave these custom kind of art pieces on your tiles, whether it's like your backsplash or, and maybe it's not all of them, but maybe it's even just like some of them. So yeah. Now is the time where I would usually be talking to you guys in the chat, answering questions, so I'll just be relaxing here. But guys, I can talk about like what I'm trying to do with the CO2 laser, which is essentially I want to build I think the CO2 laser to me is going to be CNC Labs' first new standalone product. We've had the MK1 to the MK2. Even back in the day, we had the mill one. And all the other products that we've released have essentially been add-ons for the mill one, the MK1, or the MK2. And I believe this will be one of our first products that we are releasing as a brand new standalone product, because this is not a product that you will be able to use a router on. It will just be a CO2 laser, right? And you know, my goal specs are 600 millimeters per second, so just about 10 times the speed, 75 or 78 to 80 watts of optical power, which is just about 10 times the power. And we want it to be standalone. We want you to be able to put it in your apartment like I am with this, but it will be made and shipped and optioned with an enclosure. And hopefully my goal is to have multiple enclosure types. One enclosure type, if you have great circulation and you don't really need 100% exhaust. And one enclosure type, if you're like me, you never want to set off your fire alarm and you just need that full enclosure with the negative pressure in the enclosure so that you're exhausting everything, whether it's to a filtering system that we will offer, or you can exhaust straight out the window. And that is like the gist of what we're trying to do. And it's going to be very hard. It's definitely not going to be an easy task. It's going to take a lot of development hours and kind of the creativity and ingenuity of our engineering team. It's not just going to be me. I just so happen to love lasers and kind of be the laser guy. So I'm kind of heading the product, but it's going to take the immense effort of a lot of our engineers, our team, our leadership, and all that, our management, our supply chain, everything, in order to accomplish and ship a product that we can be like very, very proud of when it does release. But I do think that a lot of you guys might be interested in this machine. That's what the survey is for, to find out what exactly you guys are interested in, and to go from there with development. There's kind of two things what we want to design in mind. It's like your wants and needs, and also the governmental like certification when it comes to selling and producing lasers. So we want to do our due diligence on both of those before we go headfirst into a design phase. But I can tell you right now that we're going to be working on whipping together a prototype and have it usable and working very, very soon. It might not be pretty, it might not be perfect, but the way I like to do product design is I like to just create the prototype because everything can be updated after the prototype is complete. So I'm just taking a look at this project. And we're still on our first pass. And I can see that it is engraving. It's just not a lot of contrast. So maybe a different type of tile might have a better contrast. Maybe letting it run multiple passes will bring out more contrast. I'm just not sure at this point. I just have to let it run. So I'm just gonna pretend like I'm looking at the chat right now. Oh, Dana, thanks for joining us. Jack in the Shop, Resident Laser Demon. Nicholas, how you doing? Bill, how you doing? I'm like going crazy. I'm so used to having like the feedback of the chat. This feels so weird, but you know, it is what it is. It's what we do. I make projects on the laser, and I was lucky enough to be able to build the enclosure so that I can now do this in my home. I have my camera set up, my lights set up, everything set up to be able to do this. And so I'm glad that it's working. Fire alarms have not been set off, so I think the enclosure and the filters are doing its job. I think I'll let it do a single pass and then actually I think it's doing multiple passes at one time. So I think it's just it's grouping the code. So we won't be able to stop it until it's finished, but we might end the stream before it's finished. But if we do, then I'll definitely kind of get the camera in there so you guys can see. But you can kind of see the code working right now, and it's doing multiple passes, so it's grouping everything. So this centerpiece was a group, did all 4 passes. Then these petals on the side were a group, and it's doing all 4 passes, and now it's doing 4 passes here. So G-Sender estimator is telling us about 30 minutes. I might end the stream before then, or the not so live stream. LaserBeam not so live. That's what this title should be. But I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you guys, if any of you guys actually came to the woodworking show, definitely let me know in the chat, because that would be awesome. I think some of you guys, I met some of you that actually do watch the LaserBeam lives. So that was very encouraging. It's nice to kind of see you guys in person and know that even though I'm just alone talking to a camera, that people are getting help. And the chat helps me kind of get that feedback, but also, you know, you can't really replace real life. So that's been great. Yeah, so this job might take a little bit longer than I thought. Just because, you know, the remaining time is still about 30 minutes. And I don't want to bore you guys. But we could also just sit in silence, and we can meditate and think about the big questions of the universe, like where do we come from? What does it all mean? While we watch the laser do its work. You know, I do find the laser a very meditative experience, you know, because it's so easy to start, it's so easy to run. You don't need any work holding. and you just let it go. Let it do its patterns. I'm just going to check up on it. And I can see the pattern is just very, very faint. You know what? I kind of know what it's going to turn out to be because it's doing all 4 passes. So as soon as it's done this little group, I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and we can move on to trying to cut the 1/4 inch. So I can at least show you guys the results of what engraving tile would look like. And then we can kind of move on and do something a little bit better, which is might be a little bit more common, which is you guys having trouble cutting, right? And this is ply, and this is very difficult to cut, 1/4 inch. And I'm going to show you that with a little bit of patience that you can do it. So I think as soon as it's done this little pattern, I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and then we will give this plywood a try. Just going to double check my code here. I think, yeah, so we're on 1 pass, so that should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it after this. I'll take it out. I'll show you guys. Okay. So you guys can see that, oh, it was actually like a teal blue on the underside, which actually does look absolutely gorgeous. I'm kind of sad that I didn't have more time for this because it would have turned out, like, imagine a backsplash, you know, there we go. Imagine having a backsplash and having this custom design, and it's very subtle, depending on what color is underneath your porcelain top layer. So some might be whites. This one was a tealish blue. And you can kind of see the exact design. It came out absolutely amazing. So can you engrave porcelain? Yes. Depends on how good it will come out. Depends on what the color underneath the top layer is. Also, make sure there's no, funky stuff. So try to know the material data sheet. Try to get the material data sheet wherever you're getting the tile, so that you know you're not engraving any toxic material, guys. That is super important. Don't just be throwing anything under your laser and firing it. You could actually get extremely hurt. Read the safety letter and all the safety stuff on our website and our resources. But yeah, turned out really, really pretty. So we might come back to this another day, or some other types of stone, but that looks amazing. So now, some of you guys might have tried cutting before. You might have even tried cutting like a 1/4 inch plywood, and you're looking at me like, guys, you cannot cut. I'm having such a hard time, and I'm here to tell you that you absolutely can cut, and you can even cut 1/4 inch. So I'm going to show you how. And I kind of already went through the settings, and that's the most of it. Dip switch 5 and the settings that I gave you will kind of get you most of the way there. And, you know, if you need more passes, then I would say just go for more passes. That's why you put the cut at the top so that you can always just rerun the project without having to redo the engraving. You can always stop the engraving after. So I'm going to load up this file right here. And this will be the real test of my exhaust system because it will be running at full power. We'll be doing engraving and cutting, which produces the most smoke. And I'm just going to line up the laser here. I'll show you guys what I'm doing. Just lining up the laser, making sure it's focused. We are all good and focused, so I'm just going to zero everything. And I'm actually going to try to get a little bit closer to the edge. There we go. I think we're pretty close. And I'm going to let this thing run. So I'm going to zero everything. And guys, this is what I was talking about. We went into the LightBurn settings to ensure that we were at 255, but it needs to match this right here, $30. And if you're using a version of G-Sender where this is having trouble because it keeps reverting to 1, first, go to your settings, go to spindle. Number 1, make sure this is enabled or your tab might be popping in and out, so make sure it's enabled in settings. Second, make sure your min is at 0, your max is at 255. Make sure everything's saved. And that should solve the issue. If your code is glitching out and you can't change $31 to 0, then you can go into the console and manually do that. So down here, click on console and put $31 equals 0. Then you can click $$ to double check it, make sure that it actually changed, or you can go back into firmware and make sure that actually changed. Because you need this to be 255. If it's 255 in LightBurn, whatever it is in LightBurn, just make sure it matches. And you need this to be 0 for your laser to operate correctly. So we're focused, we're at the start of our material, we're zeroed out in G-Sender. So now I'm going to go ahead and start it. And I am using the air assist, because you do want to use the air assist when it does come to cutting. And this is going to do 12 passes. And I'm hoping that it will be able to cut. I might even let it do a couple more passes, so I might even do 15 passes because we want to ensure that we are cutting through. So like I always say, 3 millimeters, that's a little bit better to cut. It's a lot more fun to cut because you don't have to wait so long. But you can cut if you have the patience for it. You have to dial in your settings, make sure your lens is focused, dip switch 5, 100% power, 1.8 to 3 millimeters per second, multiple passes, a Z step down in LightBurn, and then a little bit of patience, and you should be able to cut. And plywood is some of the hardest stuff to cut because of that adhesive that's in the wood. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to cut right through it. So we just finished our first pass. Now we're on to our second. This is really going to be the true test of this enclosure. Because, guys, if you start hearing the fire alarm go off, I'm not even sure how to turn off the fire alarm in this building because the loft ceilings are so high. So the enclosure was good for the for the Hamilton Woodworking Show, but that was a much larger space. This will be the true test. All right. And guys, you can actually track how many layers we're cutting or what layer we're on in GSender because it actually recognizes all the layers of the code because we changed the Z height. So now you can, because we have a Z step down, it's actually showing all the Z steps. So now I can definitely smell the laser right now. There's just no smoke that's appearing, right? Like, so the carbon filter is working. It's exhausting, or it's filtering out most of the smell and the smoke, and the pre-filter's kind of playing with the smoke, but it's not perfect. It's not a perfect enclosure. And cutting does produce the most amount of smoke, right? And running at 100% power, slow speeds will produce the most amount of smoke. So we might not have time to finish the engraving itself, because it is saying that it's going to be about a 40-minute job. But, you know, the point was to test the cutting. So I can show you guys how far, or did it cut all the way through by the end of this. And then if it didn't, then, you know, add a couple more passes. Obviously, we won't be able to if I remove the piece. So you kind of always want to go over rather than under. Unless you're using that LightBurn tool that we did, the recovery tool that we went through. So I am optimistic. It's just going to take a little while, like I told you guys. So we're only 5 minutes in, and we're on like our 5th pass. So we're just about halfway done on the cutting side. So we should be done the cutting around 12 minutes. And then honestly, the engraving shouldn't take too long. So I do believe that the time estimator will speed itself up. So I do hope that I end up getting to a hotel tomorrow so that I can pop in on during the stream and I can kind of go over things with you guys. And even if I could even just take over the stream virtually and like start showing other things, but we will have to see tomorrow. So honestly, I think the filtering is doing quite a good job because there's a little bit of a smell, but it's not like overwhelming or anything, and there's no smoke that's coming out of the box or the filters. So I honestly think it's doing a great job filtering it. Obviously, you'd want probably to vent it out, even if you are going through carbon filters. It's just always good to have that air out of your workshop, but you know, we do the best that we can. And we will only improve the setup. So we are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on our 7th pass right now. We're just finishing up our 6th, so we're about halfway done at about 7 minutes. And now we're on our 7th pass. Oh, I'm sorry guys. I got very little for you. I need that back and forth energy. Hopefully, like, future version of Ikenna who's in the chat is much more entertaining than I am being right now. One thing we could talk about is future kind of CO2 plans and what we want to do with that. So things that we need to figure out is like what type of sizing you guys are looking for, right? Because we have the long mill sizing, but also this is going to be another standalone machine. So you guys have to think about what type of sizing is going to be good for the projects that you want to do, and what type of sizing are you even able to fit in your current workshops, or like how can that work? Me, like I have a long mill sitting on a rack, on a heavy duty metal rack. So if I needed to, I could have a CO2 laser placed underneath on the rack and all venting out to the same window, right? So for me, it would work anywhere between 40, actually about 36 to 24 inches, right? So that might be a perfect machine for me, but I'm not designing it just for me. I'm designing it for the community. So you guys got to let us know when we release the survey next week what you guys need in your shop. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we are just finishing up the 8th pass right now. And we have about 4 more, just finished up the 8th, 4 more passes. And honestly, it's doing a great job venting. Like again, the amount of smell that I, like the amount of burning wood smell that I have when I mentioned it the first time, it hasn't increased. Right, so we kind of hit that like threshold, and it's not bad. You can see no smoke, no fire alarm, no nothing. Just a hint of that campfire burning wood smell. And honestly, it's not that bad. All right, we are finishing up the ninth pass here. So this is the tricky thing about cutting thicker woods, is that sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So we're about 10 minutes in, probably run for another 4 or 5 minutes. So it took 15 minutes to cut 50 millimeter by 50 millimeter circle, 12 passes, 1.9 millimeters per second, dip switch 5, 100% power. And will take about 15 minutes, and it might need an extra couple passes. So I'm just going to grab it when it's done, and hopefully we guesstimated the right amount of passes. But I don't think I've ever claimed that cutting 1/4 inch ply or anything like that was going to be easy. But if you guys want to do it, you guys can do it. You know, I liken it to like engraving aluminum with the long mill. Yeah, you guys can do it. It's not a feature we really advertise a lot, right? Like this is advertised as pretty much an engraving machine. You do have the router always, right? Because it is an add-on for the laser. The laser's an add-on for the long mill. So you always have the router available. Scott's video is a perfect example of what you can do with the router and the laser to speed your projects up. If you don't want to wait 15 minutes to cut 1/4 inch, you can watch that coaster video that he did, the cottage series coaster video, and you can see him use both the router and the laser in tandem, and you guys can kind of get that same output, and hopefully you guys won't have like such a frustrating experience with cutting with the laser, because I do get your emails. I know some of you guys get really disappointed, even though we don't, look at all the LaserBeam lives and tell me how many times we've used it as a cutting machine. We've definitely cut some stuff with it during the LaserBeam lives, but we really never really purported to be a 1/4-inch woodcutter. It just can. I've tested it. I've done it before. I've done it multiple times. We did it even at the trade show, but it's just a little bit of a bigger pain. So second last pass. Almost done. So I'm even going to lower the speed even more for this last pass, just because I want to ensure that we cut all the way through. So I changed it to, on my end, it's 68 millimeters per minute, which is probably 0.9 millimeters per second, because I just want to ensure that we're not removing this material without it cutting all the way through. So it's moving really slow right now. I pretty much chopped the speed in half here, or maybe a little bit above half. So maybe we're at about a little over 1 millimeter per second for this very last pass here. And then we're gonna set it back to the normal. All we did was use the override function in GSender. It's down here. I just slid this little slider down, or you could use the plus minus. And then once it's finished the cutting part, I'm going to reset it back to its normal so that the engraving still runs at 25 millimeters per second, what we set it in LightBurn at. It's just almost done, about halfway done. I think lowering the speed right at the end is going to get us our cut through. You know, maybe not, maybe we're just like very close, but I just want to kind of add a little insurance policy. Which you can always do. Spend a little bit more time, run it a little bit slower so that you can do less passes, or you can ensure that it cuts all the way through if you feel like it won't. And then I'm just going to press this little reset button to reset the speed for as soon as it finishes cutting. And we're just about done. And we're almost there. Come on. Wait, do we have one more pass or no? Okay, there we go. So now I'm resetting it back to 25 millimeters per second. And you can see to engrave, you can run it much, much quicker, right? This is why, for time's sake, it's a lot better at engraving than it is cutting. And we're just about 16 minutes into the job, so probably finish up in about 10 seconds. So 16 minutes to cut a 50 by 50 millimeters circle. Hopefully we cut. We shall find out. I'm gonna let it sit there just for a minute, just so before I open the hatch, the fan and the filters can do its thing by exhausting, rather than me opening it and allowing all the smoke or any leftover smoke or particulate to kind of waft into my apartment. So I'm just gonna let it run for a second or two. see. So we pretty much cut through it. I'm calling this a cut because, you know, plywood is just so tricky. We have some chipping, right? So I could clean this up with a X-Acto knife and I would call this a cut. I could just a little bit of chips on the end. But you guys can take a look at this. And you guys can see that we cut through. And again, the edges, whoop, the last layer of like the plywood, the edges were, yeah, they were a bit frayed a little bit. But with a box cutter, you could clean up the edges, or with a sander. But the fact that it did cut all the way through, and you can kind of see on the bed the exact pattern, which wouldn't have made it through unless we actually cut through the wood. So you can see that there. So that is quarter inch plywood. It's not gonna focus because I'm on a manual focus, but you guys can see that that is quarter inch. We did a cut and an engrave, and it took 60 minutes. The sizing was 45 millimeters by 45 millimeter circle, and it took about 60 minutes to do it. So I call that a success. And that is where I'm gonna leave you. I got to finish packing, and I gotta get up at 5 in the morning, drive to the airport, and then fly out to Chicago so that I can enjoy the LightBurn experience, the conference. So hopefully you guys had some fun here. You guys learned that you can engrave porcelain and create this beautiful, beautiful design. You can cut quarter inch plywood, even though some people might have a little bit of trouble. You can cut it. It's just got to dial in the settings, the focus, all that fun stuff. And yeah, you know the drill. My name is Ikenna for CNC Labs, and whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, or night, I appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me. Enjoy your day. Find the rest of the LaserBeam Lives under the Live tab on the CNC Labs YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with any of your friends if they like lasers and all that fun stuff. And I will catch you in 2 weeks on the next LaserBeam Live. That'll be episode number 32. Let me know if you guys have a specific project that you want me to do. If not, then we will try to be doing granite, maybe some more porcelain, and yeah, maybe some slate. So I will catch you then, and take care.